This is Daddy Show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to the program. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark. And for those of you that don't know where I took that from, that you probably have no business listening to this particular program, this is Tom Clark's main event. All WWE, all day, all the time. If you don't know who I am, please indulge me for a moment before we get started here. I am a WWE featured columnist for Bleacher Report. I also contribute to John Bradshaw Layfield's Layfield Report, WhatCulture.com, and last but certainly not least, the Camel Clutch blog. For all things WWE, UFC, pro wrestling, all major professional sports, politics, pop culture, movies, music, news of the day, you name it. These 4 websites have it. Please do yourself a favor and go check them out. Support yours truly, and remember to vote Tom in 2016 because every vote counts, people. For those of you that do know me and didn't need any of that nonsense in particular, I offer up a laurel and a hearty handshake. Thank you for all the support that I've received. I've been a professional writer for about 4 years now online. It's been an amazing experience. I've received a lot of support along the way, and for that I do thank you. I'm online all the time, folks, 8 days a week, writing, publishing. It's an amazing thing. It's something I've enjoyed doing since day one, and hopefully will continue to do for a long time to come. This podcast thing, however, has not been something that I've always had in the back of my mind. I've been interested in the genre, of course, but never really had time to pursue it. Didn't think I ever would, actually. But after a couple of months of some intense research and some intense investing, here we are. This thing has actually come to life before your very eyes. I hope that you do find it enjoyable. And again, thank you for tuning in. If you've ever tuned in to a pro wrestling podcast in the past, you may have gotten the same things all the time. Subjects similar to, what happened last night on Raw, what's going to happen on SmackDown, what's going to happen on pay-per-view, what did you think? Well, here's what I think. I've done those guest spots in the past, and those are fun. Don't get me wrong here. That's not really what I wanted to do this particular program. The title of this show is Main Event for 2 reasons. One, of course, is the obvious pro wrestling reference, but the second reason is because every week on this program, I'm going to offer up a different subject, different topic of discussion, a different main event, if you will. This week's main event will be different than next week's main event, and so on and so forth. Hopefully, it's a format that works for you and that will click on all cylinders. I'm hoping for that as well. Hopefully, you're entertained by this whole thing. We're going to try to have some fun here, folks. We're going to have some special guests along the way. Got a special guest dialed in today, ready to go. So what more are we waiting for? What more can I say? So this week's main event, the first ever broadcast, is comedy in professional wrestling. And folks, I am genuinely happy and pleased and honored to have as my first guest ever, Mr. Will Noonan. Will, thank you for joining me. Welcome to the main event.
My pleasure to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me. And what an honor to be the very first guest.
Thank you, man. I do appreciate it. I had to go reach out to the funny man on Twitter. It's fun. It's funny because I don't know how it happened, if you saw my stuff or if I saw yours or what happened, but somehow we got connected on Twitter and just kind of went from there. So
yeah, I don't know who followed who first, but it's been a while, and I just remember. Yeah, yes. I started reading your stuff after talking to you on Twitter. A Twitter bromance was born.
That's cool. I always thank everybody for their support, be it good or bad. So there again, yeah, thank you much. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
So I know you're a huge fan.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you right off the bat, when it comes to comedy and pro wrestling, specifically WWE, I mean, are you hit to it when it happens and you know it's coming? When it happens, are you like, oh, here we go again? Or is it, hey, that's cool, make me laugh? I mean, as a comedian, how do you approach it?
Oh, I love it, and I like primarily watch wrestling with my comedian friends, like on like even tonight I'll watch Raw with a bunch of comics, and not all the comedians love the comedy segments and comedy stuff, but I sure do. And even not just at the WWE, like when I'm at an indie show, I really love a comedy match. I think they do a lot for, a 3-hour show. You're going to have some stuff like that just to spice it up and, make an audience, give them entertainment. People like Smart Marks and people on the internet message boards love to just they want WrestleMania matches, 8 matches every night. They want everything to be just high flying and crazy, and it's it can't be like that every single night, and they kind of have to stretch it out and tell a story. So, guys like Santino, and right now Damien Sandow's killing it with I think if I were a kid right now, I'd be psyched every single time I saw Sandow coming out,
Well, and speaking of Sandow, a lot of stuff going on about him right now. Some fans are saying that, he's getting choked, he's not being allowed to do anything, and he's been made to look foolish. My response to any criticism about anybody on that roster is, number one, are you on TV?
Yeah.
Number two, if you are, then what is the problem? I don't care if he's on TV wearing a dress. He's getting airtime where Zack Ryder is still sitting in the locker room getting nothing.
Yeah. And I don't think there's I think most indie wrestlers out there would love to trade places with Damien Sandow right now.
Oh, of course.
And he's just, I think people are incorrect if they think that he's getting buried or choked and this is a punishment, because I'm sure Sandow actually probably is happy he has something to do, and they probably don't give him that much, and he kind of works with it himself. I bet he's coming up with a lot of these bits himself, and I was actually just watching a interview today with Jinder Mahal, and he was saying how a lot of people, used to shit on 3MB, and a lot of people used to ask him he must be disappointed of being 3MB, but he was like, hey man, we had an opportunity to go out there. Our in-ring stuff might not have been what we wanted as far as what we could do in there, but we entertained the crowd. We were over with fans. We were baby faces in England. And, they're just, these guys, even though they're wrestlers, they're also entertainers at heart. And as a fellow entertainer, all you want to do is just get the crowd going. It doesn't really matter. There's ways you want to do it. I'm sure they all want to be Daniel Bryan or CM Punk, but not everyone can be. So it's you just want to get over with the crowd and get them pumped.
I remember when I got into the business, and I got into it very briefly around 2000, was in it for a few years, and had just the best time of my life. It's such a blast.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the promoters I worked for saying the problem that he had when Austin got big was that everybody in the locker room had to wear black. Suddenly, everybody had to have black knee pads, black trunks, black boots. Everyone had to have black. And you see that now a lot. So I get where you're coming from, where guys feel like they have to do I have to look a certain way, I have to do this certain thing. But you were talking about 3MB.
Yeah.
And to me, someone said this on Twitter one night. It was a stroke of genius. I wish I'd been the one to come up with this, that they were sort of the modern day Spinal Tap.
Oh, that is a stroke of genius.
And I thought, man, I consider myself smart. I'm not really all that smart, because that's awesome.
Yeah, and that would have been a great way for them to go with that, tons of backstage segments. I love 3MB. I thought they were funny. I thought they had a great song, and they did, they did good stuff every time they were out, but I also understand that the WWE just needs money right now, and
especially with the comedy stuff, does it feel like sometimes they're just, and I know this is not the case because I, again, try to be smart here, but it feels like they're just all sitting around a big table spitballing and saying, just put them on TV, we'll see what happens. It's there's no end game. You're talking about backstage pods. It would have been awesome to have these guys in the ring with instruments and amps, and right as they go to play, nothing works. The amps are dead.
Yeah.
And they're blaming the techs on it and blaming the roadies instead of it working. Why is there no end game to a gimmick like that?
I know. Or that famous scene where there's that great scene in Spinal Tap where they can't find the stage and they're running around. Which has happened to me as a comedian, and I think it's happened to everybody.
That's awesome.
A lot of the old theaters and stuff like that, they really are like that. And you can't find the stage, and you're running around with some producer, I think it's this way. Come on, you can hear the audience, and it's really funny. And that would have been a great gimmick for them. It's really easy to watch the WWE and be they should do this and they should do that, and this guy should do this. And I try not to be too critical of them, because I just don't know what goes into writing a show like that. However, I think we can all agree, like, it's, especially a guy like you or a guy like me, regular fan watching Raw every Monday, sometimes it's like almost like a punishment to you to be a regular fan, because it's like, man, these storylines are going nowhere. Like, just, this springs to mind, I don't know why, but the Alicia Fox thing is like a perfect, it's a perfect example of like a WWE storyline that it's kind of it starts out really interesting, stays the same, and then ends.
Yeah, like it went absolutely nowhere. Was she convincing? I don't, people were praising this as it happened. I thought, she's been doing this for 10 minutes. How is this impressive? Give me a month from now.
Yeah.
Not that she wasn't putting herself into it, but I don't know how much of it I even bought as it was happening. Maybe that's what when they went back and looked at the playback of it, they said, oh, God, I don't know. But like you said, why didn't they go anywhere with it to begin with?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, like, Saturday Night Live. Sometimes they just go like, oh, okay, like, that sketch works. Let's just do it again next week. Like, don't change anything, because people get turned off if, like, they don't see what they already enjoy. So it's kind of like, well, Alicia Fox, going crazy, like, wigging out. She was good at that. Let's do it next week. Just give her popcorn instead of a Coke. You know what I mean?
That's
it's like
right,
they don't really add anything to it. Like, one of the good things about the indies is, like, right now, a lot of them, like, Chikara is, like, one of my favorite indie promotions. And, like, their storylines last, like, forever. And if something happens, the consequence is, like, always there. And that's one of the things I like about it. And I wish there was more, like, long-term storylines in the WWE. But I get the feeling, like you said, they're sitting around a conference table. They have, like, stats. They're like, all right, the average viewer only watches 2 episodes of Raw a month and, 1 episode halfway through. So, like, let's just make sure we get Cena on at that point. And, like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's, like, they have, like, a very strict protocol, and there's not a whole lot of, like, oh, what's going to happen with, Ryback, like, 6 months from now? You know what I mean? It's just, like, week to week.
Well, and you were talking about Alicia, and I never got to write this column because the bit with her ended, but I wanted to do the piece on pairing Alicia with Dean Ambrose. I thought that would have been a stroke of genius. And I mean, not that Dean is doing that, but when it comes to comedy, there's different types of comedy. Dean has more of a dark edge to him.
Yeah.
Where you kind of want to laugh, but he's so dangerous. Like, you don't know if he's being funny or if he's being ridiculous or if he's being sinister.
Yeah.
So I think that would have worked.
I think so too. Actually, I was like, as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that's cool. And he's my favorite. Like, I'm a huge mark for Ambrose right now. He's my favorite wrestler on the roster. My friends all make fun of me because I'm always like, Dean Ambrose is the best. But I love his style. Like, I think he's the kind of wrestler, like, you could look at him anytime during a match. Like, when he was with the Shield, they were in a ton of triple threat or 3-on-3 matches, and, like, he's got 2 tag team partners. And you could look at Dean Ambrose, like, anytime, even when, like, the action wasn't on him, and he was always, like, doing something compelling, and he, like, always seemed like he cared about, like, what was going on in the ring, and, like, just, like, focused on winning and destroying. And I really like, he reminds me of Austin a lot, like, and that swagger that he has.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Steve McQueen in The Magnificent Seven.
Oh, hell yeah.
Where he was constantly trying to upstage Yul Brynner. So in every scene the two are on camera together, McQueen is tugging at his hat, he's adjusting his shirt, he's doing something with his hands, just very subtly trying to steal the scene.
Yeah.
Because when Ambrose is on TV, you can't help but look at him. And
absolutely.
To me, that's star power. I mean, I like Seth, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of forced to look at Seth because Triple H's arm is around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, you just hit the nail on the head about what I love about Ambrose. He's a scene stealer. He's great on the mic. You don't get the feeling like it's a rehearsed, like, script. Like, you really he's kind of like an old school throwback wrestler when you think about it. He's just,
he is, absolutely.
Balls to the wall, like, I don't know. I'm looking forward to this lumberjack match. I think it's going to be good.
I am too. I think it'd be great. You spoke a little while ago about not being able to find the stage, and it reminded me of that night in WCW when Chris Jericho is trying to find the arena, and every door he busts through is not there. And the crowd starts laughing, and Jericho's going, oh, come on, every time he misses the door. So transitioning a little bit now, when you go from an act like 3MB, who were all comedy all the time, to an act like Dean, who may be flirting with it just a little, and then you have Jericho, who can do comedy at the snap of a fingers. He can be the most vicious heel you've ever seen, or suddenly he's got you cracking up. Why does it work so much better for him than it does somebody else?
I don't know. I mean, people always say that the hardest thing, comedy is one of the hardest things to do, and like one of the hardest things about comedy is one of the hardest things to learn is like comedic timing. It's kind of like an innate thing that a lot of people are born with. I think Jericho just happens to have a great sense of timing.
Yeah.
And, he's got the goods and he knows how to use it. And when it's funny, my girlfriend, like, she knows nothing about wrestling. She doesn't know Chris Jericho from Ziggler as far as like who's a bigger legend or anything. So when she comes in and watches Raw with me, it's always like really funny what she says. And she's an actress. But she was watching Jericho, cut a promo like against Triple H and Steph, like last week. And, she just kind of happened to walk in. She's like, yeah, this guy's like really good. You can tell he's been doing this for a long time in front of these people. And like, he's smooth, and she didn't know who he was. She's like, who's that? And I'm like, Chris Jericho. And she goes, who the fuck is, or I don't know if I can swear. She goes, who the hell is Chris Jericho? Because she's like a total Divas fan, you know what I mean? She only knows like Cena and, Nikki Bella and stuff. So I was like, and then I was just like, sit down for a minute. Let me tell you about Chris Jericho.
He's amazing to watch, and like you said, been at it for years and very accustomed to being in front of the camera and not a problem. But I wonder sometimes with the spots they record before the show, how many times do they have to do another take because someone cracks up in the room? I just don't know how I could keep a straight face with Chris without laughing. I don't know how I could do it.
I'd have that problem with a lot of guys. I'd probably have that with Sandow too. He's a funny guy. Like, I don't know. I would have no problem keeping a straight face during an Adam Rose segment.
I'll tell you, I don't for the life of me, and maybe I've not looked up enough recently what's going on with him, but there was this massive spotlight, and now it's like it been taken off. And to me, from where I'm coming from, it's a shame because Adam does something no one else does. And he has a spot that no one else has. You've got some guys who are, in all the respect in the world to Dolph, I love Dolph's work and all the questions about why is he not bigger and this, that, and the other. But Dolph at the end of the day is a great hand. Yeah. There's a lot of great hands in that company, but Adam is something entirely different. He just shows up, party bus, lollipop, nonsense, but kind of like Bray Wyatt, no one does what Bray does. No one does what Adam does. But yet Adam's not getting any airtime like he was before. I wonder what's happened with that. Have they pulled back a little bit for him? I mean, how do you stand on that?
I don't know. I got the feeling it wasn't really getting over with the fans that much. Like people kind of liked it. People kind of liked it a few weeks. The party bus was great when it was on NXT. It was such a great gimmick. I think it seemed kind of expensive for NXT, you know what I mean?
For sure.
And it was big for NXT, and I think people kind of like that. They were like, wow, look at this guy. He's getting 30 people walking to the ring with him every show. Like, that's like what a push they're giving him or something, And then it was kind of like, he came up to the main event roster, and it was like, just like we were talking about with Alicia Fox. It was just, no one knew what to expect. It didn't lead anywhere. Like, the good thing about Bray Wyatt was you had that build up, and then you had, the slow kind of like they revealed what they really were over the course of a couple of weeks.
Right. And there again, I think there's a lot of potential with Adam, but I mean, who knows if they're going to go anywhere with it at all. The thing about Damian, and I know we're bouncing around like crazy, but the thing about Damian that I find interesting, the moment he came out of character and started doing different things and different outfits, I immediately thought of Big Show. When several years ago they took Big Show, who was not over, couldn't draw flies if he were, covered in crap, more or less, and couldn't do anything. And they said, you know what, just go out and have fun. So he comes out dressed as Hogan. He comes out dressed as Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. And at first the crowd had the same reaction they did with Damian, where it was like, oh God, what are you doing? What are you doing to this guy?
Yeah.
And then over the course of a month or two, suddenly Big Show's sense of humor came out, and it became, dude is funny. He's actually funny. because the whole time we'd been, here's the giant, he's massive, he's intense, he's this, he's that. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, no, show's got a sense of humor. You guys need to see that. So I wonder if that's what's going to happen with Damien, to the point where, kind of like with Wade Barrett, it became, I can't help but like this guy. He's so entertaining. Is that going to happen with Damien?
I think it will. Like, I think Damien Sandow is one of the best on mic, on camera guys they have. It would be like so stupid to let him go. Whether or not they've really found, I don't know if they found like the right way to use him yet, but he's great. He can work off the cuff. He's quick-witted, good with the crowd. Like, his first character, like the genius character, was awesome. Now he's doing this character, and he's actually from around here where I'm from, and a lot of the indie guys around here came up with like him and Johnny Curtis, aka Fandango, and they all speak super highly about those guys, but a lot of them predict big things for Sandow because he was just such a good indie wrestler.
You would think that you're a co-host, man, because you're making my segue so easy. Because honestly, Fandango, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, at first glance, it was, oh my God, what is this guy doing? And is it supposed to be comedy? Is it not supposed to be comedy? And you know, I wonder again what's going to happen with him, because when I look at him, I don't know if I still see Johnny Curtis trying to be somebody else. Like with Adam Rose, I see Adam Rose. I no longer see Kruger. I see Adam Rose. But with Johnny Curtis, sometimes I still see Johnny Curtis trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that's why he's not over to the moon like, say, Dustin was when he became Goldust. Because Dustin fully embraced it, and no one even saw Dusty Rhodes' son after a while.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a very good question. I actually kind of wonder about Fandango a lot too, because that was a character I really liked about the T-shirt, and
there you go.
You know, like I'm a fan of his. Like, I like the Johnny Curtis stuff. I just like I wonder sometimes, like, and this is totally hyperbole, like just talking out of my butt, but like I've always wondered if like he just hates the character, you know, and like he doesn't give it his all because he doesn't want it to catch on too much. Like he wants to be reworked as like a straight baby face or something, or like a more Wade Barrett type heel instead of like a comedy character.
Well, he's broke character a few times now on camera, which I didn't think I was going to see happen.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the girls, Summer Rae and Layla, just fighting over him, and I'm like, geez, I don't know.
And they use him on like Total Divas, which has its own like set of kayfabe. That's like that's totally different from the show, but it's just as fantastical.
Right, I'm sure.
And he gets involved in that. And it's funny, they use all the same like enhancement dudes on Total Divas. Like, they use 3MB to make them look good. They use Fandango to make the Divas look like, they use Sandow. They use all like the guys that they use to make the main roster look good, to make those Divas look good.
I'm such an old school guy. I can't help it. So I have mixed feelings and emotions about Total Divas. Part of me says, I don't care. It's 2014. Let it go. It's no longer the territory days. Grow up and get over yourself, Tom.
Yeah.
But the other part of me says, God, geez, you're essentially saying that all these girls are friends behind the scenes. How do I as a fan buy into these two girls hate each other? Really? Because last week on TV, they were friends. I don't understand. You know, that's hard for me as a fan to grasp the concept of. To me, that's comedy. Is you expect me to buy into two women in the ring going at it when 7 days prior, I saw them laughing and chumming it up. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah, and they also, what's even more dumb about that is that they try and bring in, like kayfabes. They try and bring in storylines from Total Divas that is a reality show that everyone knows is filmed 6 months, like, prior, or at minimum, like, because they show what they're doing. So, like, they're like, all right, on the show last week, Nikki Bella and Nat, like, competed at last year's SummerSlam.
Right.
But they're still mad about that fight they had, and they're going to settle it tonight. You know what I mean? It's like, so they haven't worked it out over 6 months.
Oh, the painting.
Yeah, it's really bad.
My God.
But it has been good for the company, I think. Like, my girlfriend, you know, she wouldn't know anything. Now she's into SummerSlam. She wants to see SummerSlam, and that's all related to Total Divas, I think.
I'm going to tell you this, and I probably catch heat for that on some fronts, but most of the followers I have on Twitter are female. And the reason for that has a lot to do with the fact that for me, like talking to you like is different than talking to some other guys, because I like to talk to level-headed fans that can debate without making it personal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've written columns where I've gotten, expletive laden.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, dude, really? I mean, how seriously do you take it was an opinion piece. Calm down.
Yeah.
But like, I rarely get that from a female perspective. They would rather debate what just happened than to say, well, no, you're wrong, I'm wrong, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a conversation,
Exactly.
And that's the fun part of wrestling is like, it's an art form and you can kind of discuss it in that way. But wrestling fans are unique. Like a unique breed, man. Like I never really had much of like an interaction, in that way because I was just a fan myself. But then when I started doing the podcast and started like doing more interviews on wrestling podcasts, I started getting mail from people they're like totally lots of swearing, lots of like personal insults. And then sometimes it's even like when I take too long putting out an episode, it's like, I love your podcast, you stupid idiot. Like, put out an episode, you asshole. And I'm like,
that's
hey, man,
awesome.
do you like me or do you hate me? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, love-hate relationship for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny because they do tend to take it to extremes.
Yeah.
And I see that so much, especially on my side of the fence, writing about this stuff 8 days a week. It happens all the time. And I have heated debates as well, but at the end of the debate, we can part, say, hey, man, I appreciate your opinion. I can respect yours and move on. But like the comedy aspect, you sit there and if you want to know what kind of effect comedy has in WWE, if you've got a lot of WWE people on your Twitter feed, just watch on Monday nights, because the second that Santino shows up or somebody of the ilk shows up and starts doing the comedy and the one-liners, Twitter explodes.
Oh, yeah, man.
It becomes, dude, again with this? Why is Dolph not wrestling? Why is Zach not there? And then you really get people's true opinions of where the comedy's coming from and how they really feel about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, but those, the complainers are always the most vocal people, like the people who are just laughing at it and enjoying it aren't on Twitter. They're just sitting there watching it. It can be tough, like, but all these people too, they've never put together a show. It's like, how hard it is. I mean, I don't know if Raw really needs to be 3 hours, but that's what it is, so they gotta fill 3 hours a show. If it was 3 hours of, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, people would be bored as hell. You gotta have variety. You gotta have a Divas match. You gotta have it's the same when you go to an indie show. Even 2 tag matches back to back can just seem, by the end of the second tag match, it's like you've seen every move. You gotta spice it up.
I remember one of the guys and we had our own little heel group when I was in. And there was, I swear to God, we're the NWO down here because we had like 10 or 12 guys at any given time. and we were all supposed to be sort of the badass heel, had the black, had the dark glasses and everything, had that image.
Nice.
And anytime somebody would come to us with an idea that involved comedy, the guy that was my best friend, leader of the group, he wouldn't even have to look up. He'd be lacing his boots. And he could just hear in the background. And the first thing he would say is, I don't do comedy.
Yeah.
And he would let it go at that. And at the time, it's like, you know what? He's got a point. That's not us. If you make us do this, you're going to take everything that we've done to this point and make us look like complete clowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see where they're coming from in some respect, because it's like you wouldn't want to put Undertaker in that spot. You wouldn't want to put, I don't know, Roman in that spot, Randy Orton. I mean, when you get comedy around those guys, it becomes, are you trying to make me look foolish right now?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is kind of weird and worrisome in those ways. Like, I've watched, I don't know, you see, where they try to put the Undertaker in a funny sketch, and it's just idiots.
Well, Taker has a great sense of humor, and if you go and YouTube some of the stuff that they've done off camera, dude is hilarious. But again, it's Undertaker. You can't really do that stuff with him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was out here called Beyond Wrestling. Yeah. It's a big promotion out here. They have shows about once a month, but once a year they do their big show, which is called American Rana, and so, me and my buddy Rydoon, we were set up as, a comedy tag team. It was a total comedy spot. Mm-hmm. We had there were other guys. There was an 18-man battle royal. There were other guys in the match who were comedy, wrestlers. There was, Johnny Cockstrong was there. Mm-hmm. And there was some funny stuff. But, really, we were the only, true comedy on the whole show. But we were the opening match as well, right? But everyone had a great time, and everyone said, like, good stuff that day. But, like, in the requisite following days, like, on the internet, like, I got, like, a lot of negative stuff from, like, Smarky fans that were like, that opening match was stupid. Like, it belittles wrestling to have, like, comedy on the show. And, like, that clown, like, had no business. And some people just, like, believed our gimmick, too. Like, our whole point was we were, like, Hollywood dweebs, like douchebags who thought we were better than it, and we were trying to be like
Andy Kaufman. It's Andy Kaufman.
Yeah,
again.
exactly. Absolutely. I mean, that was the whole inspiration was Andy Kaufman, you know. So some people were like, those guys were jerks, like they had no business like being there, and it was kind of funny to me how people were getting so mad about like what basically was like the warm up match for the show. Like I don't know why people were even like taking it so seriously, but it was a thrill of my life. And I caught some heat from wrestlers as well for doing it, which was a surprise, but it was a good time all around.
Well, you would think that one of the guys in the locker room would understand and would be okay with it because, you know, you've got almost 27,000 followers on Twitter. Somebody knows who you are.
Yeah.
So I mean, anytime somebody can be brought in from the outside that can do something for them, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and the guys who I got heat from like weren't even there. Like it was like the wrestlers at the promotion and the guys like I worked with were all really cool, and they all knew. Like my big thing ahead of time was like, even when we talked about doing it, I was like, listen, man, like to the promoter, I was like, it has to be cool with like the wrestlers. Like it has to be like, I don't want to show up and have a bunch of guys angry with me. And I was like, I respect the business and like, I'm a fan. The last thing I want to do is start like pissing people off. So he's like, no, don't worry about it. Like there's going to be some other teams that are like that, and it's not going to be bad. And it went good and everything like that. But we did a couple spots that were like way bigger than anyone expected and like way more dangerous. Mm-hmm. And so after it came out and the photos came out, like a couple wrestlers from like other guys I've interviewed for my podcast were like, hey, you know, it doesn't look good when like a stand-up comedian goes out and takes like a power bomb and like doesn't go to the hospital.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even like that. Like you were talking about that earlier, like, yeah, protect the business. And I absolutely like thought that I was doing it as much as I could. Like I didn't like give anything away to anybody. Like I did, like, you know, on the day, and my shoulder was really hurting me, so I was like nursing the shoulder. But like there were still guys that were like, nah, just even by doing it, like you kind of like hurt the kayfabe a little bit. And I was like, that kind of bummed me out. But to like full disclosure, the guys that said that are like super like great technical old school kind of wrestler guys. And
right.
They're just being themselves, and I don't have anything against them or anything. Like I actually, to one of the guys, I was like, I'm sorry, man. Don't be mad at me. I was like, I had to take my chance to get in the squared circle, dude.
Well, you could just always use the excuse that you were channeling your inner John Cena, and you'd get you'd be excused right away because Cena never goes. I mean, I'll never. And dude, to me, this is comedy. In the match where Ryback put him through the stage and he shakes off going to the hospital. He gets up off the stretcher.
Yeah.
Like Jesus going to walk on water. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? To me, I laughed out loud when I saw that. And I just thought, man, it's typical. It's just typical. Like you've spent 10 plus years of your existence on this planet as a company convincing me that John is Superman. I got it, brother. You don't need to do it anymore. I got it.
Yeah.
But they had to show from the WWE app, by the way, not on the pay-per-view. They had to show on WWE.com. Cena shrugs off help. He doesn't want help. Gee, dude, really? To me, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I sold like as much as I could when I was wrestling, like, because not only because the stuff really hurt a lot. But also because that was the fun part of it for me. I was like, if there's one thing I can do, it's act stupid. So I'll just I'll sell like crazy. And I think they appreciated that. I got chopped a lot, and I was like, it wasn't hard to sell those chops.
Oh no.
But yeah, like. I still had merchandise to sell, and I still wanted to watch the rest of the show, so I hung around. But that's how they do it at Beyond Wrestling, though. Like, all the wrestlers kind of hang out, but it was fun, and I got a whole new respect for the business after spending a day kind of backstage with some of those guys, and just watching how they I got to see the young bucks, like.
Oh, there you go.
backstage, meet them, kind of see what they do to prepare, and it was like really cool, you know.
It's hard to go home, right? It's hard to leave that atmosphere.
I couldn't, honest to God, I couldn't really sleep that night. My girl was laughing. She was laying in bed next to me. She's like, "You are breathing heavy, and I can feel your heart. I can feel your heart beating in the bed." And I was like, "I'm still excited." I was like, "I can't fucking believe it." It was crazy.
We had shows on Saturday nights, and it would be over. We'd be back home probably around 11:30. It was 2 or 3 in the morning before I could even wind down because your adrenaline's just pumping. You had such a good time, and even during shows that were rough. I mean, like now when I watch Raw or SmackDown or pay per view or whatever, I try to find the good stuff and pull it out of it. Like I've been told that I'm too critical, but I'm a writer, I'm an analyst. That's kind of my job.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I do try to pull something positive out of it. So if it has to be a funny moment, sometimes it's just a funny spot that I'll be like, you know, like Zeb Coulter cracked me up tonight. The dude is just hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, like you were saying about not being able to sleep, like it's the same. I get that with stand-up comedy too. You have a really good show, like the adrenaline is just like in your blood, and it's not going to go anywhere for a while. But like, I think like what you're saying about finding the good thing about every show, like that's just good life advice, man. Like that should be your outlook. Like, you know, it can be easy to be critical about everything, but you got to try and find a little something to focus on it. And that's easy to do, I think, in a 3-hour. If you can't find one thing that you like in a 3-hour episode of Raw, it's like you shouldn't be watching Raw. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I still, like, I try not to complain too much. It's hard because it's just like if you watched anything as much as guys like us watch wrestling, it's like you're going to start comparing it to other matches. You're going to start, you know, it's just, how can you not? It's just habit, you know? Like, if you watch enough, I watch a lot of basketball. Like, I'm not a professional basketball player, but I still sit there and say, like, oh, he should have done this. He should have done that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it still makes me, like, a dumbass, but I still got to do it, you know?
Well, you know, and for anyone outside of the business that critiques it, and there's a lot of people that do, actually. Obviously, there are.
Yeah.
You know, for a lot of people that are outside the business, they call it silly and hokey and old-fashioned. It's for kids or whatever. Or it's too violent or whatever it is they say about it. Just go look at the arena pack with 20,000 people.
Oh, yeah, man.
Go look at the merchandise they sell. Look at the money these guys make. And if nothing else, go look at Twitter and look at the passion that these fans have, that a lot of us have, where it's like, God, you know, I'm a little tired of seeing so-and-so in this match. I think he could do better. They should do better by him. If no one cared, that company would go bankrupt today.
Yeah, and look at another good thing. Look at the front row. Like, I spend a lot of time when I watch wrestling, like looking into the crowd and just looking at the fans, and like you look at our WWE crowd, man, it is like every single type of person that exists in America in those first few rows.
Yeah.
Like white, black, old, young, rich, poor, and like you will see, like when it gets to when it's going good, there's like an ear to ear smile on every fucking, excuse me, I swore again.
That's so fun. It's fun.
You can believe that. On every person, I'm getting passionate. There's a big smile on every person's face out there, and you know, like that's really what it's all about. Like, and I only wrestled for 5 minutes, but that was, to me, like the thrill of it was like it was a sold out show. And when I looked out at the crowd and I saw like smiles looking back at me, I was just like, oh my God, man, like this is crazy, this is incredible, and I think that's what it's all about, you know.
Well, you've been in front of a live crowd a lot in your career. I mean, you know when they're feeling it.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, you can tell probably 5 minutes in, you're going, "Oh crap, this is not working."
Oh,
like,
you can tell when they're walking in sometimes. Like sometimes you're just sitting there at the bar having a soda, and you're watching the crowd come to their seats, and you can kind of tell, you can kind of feel their vibe, and go like, "All right, this is going to be like a little bit more of an effort, or a little bit." And I think that's why I like the wrestling thing so much, because I can read a crowd, and I do like love an excited crowd, and that was like one of the most charged up crowds I'd ever been in front of. Like it was crazy.
Well, speaking of the crowd, I don't know about you, but again, I'm old school, I can't help it, but it frustrates me to no end when a guy's thrown up against the barricade that 20 fans lean over the barricade to get in the camera range. I can't stand that.
I know, it's tough. Or when they slap them, like they always slap them on the shoulder. I get why people do that though. Like there's a lot of things that I've hated about wrestling, and then I'm like there and I understand. Like Like I hate the what chants, and I still don't participate in them. And I don't participate in them. But one time I was at an ROH show, and I heard myself, like I heard the words "what" just come out of my own mouth because like everyone was doing it. You know what I mean? And I just got like sucked into that like I was just a sheep or a piece of cattle. And I was like, what? And then I remember my friend gave me a look like, are you serious? Like, we don't say what. And I was like, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from. And,
I don't think that'll ever die. I think that'll go on forever.
Man, I don't think CM Punk chants will ever die.
Never.
It'll be
never.
what CM Punk until this thing's over. But,
I recently in something I published today, I called it the self-imposed exile. And, I mean, he says retirement, but, I don't know. I mean that
could be a big great work too. Like I mean my opinion on that, and it's total hearsay and just out of my butt. But I think CM Punk and Vince McMahon had like a great relationship, good enough where he could be like, listen, man, like I'm just burnt out. Like I need to get out. Like how about we do that? Like. It could be like a 2-year burn, like you really convince the world CM Punk is done, and then that's when you bring. As soon as everyone finally believes it, that's when he comes back. And
well, I've seen headlines here and there about something going to court, and I thought, dude, if that's all it is, that's nothing. Because look at the amount of problems they've had as a company with court before.
Yeah,
and Hogan came back to work how many times now? So, I mean,
there's no. I don't think there's any burning a bridge with the WWE because so many guys have come back after so many horrible things that it's like, I mean, even Stone Cold, he was making so much money, but he pissed off Vince as bad as anyone,
Of course.
And if they let him back, like, they'll easily let Punk back,
And, talking about Austin, who knew that Austin was so funny and such a comedian?
Oh my God!
I know that the stuff with the Alliance was, oh my God, it was crazy, and I didn't like him as a heel no more than anyone else did.
Yeah.
But you can't go back and watch those clips without cracking up because he was hilarious.
Oh yeah, man. Him, Adam Carolla he had some idea of how funny Stone Cold was because he used to have him on his podcast all the time.
Uh-huh.
I think Carolla might have been the guy who got like Stone Cold to start podcasting because he would have Stone Cold on and just get him to be funny. He would just ask him kind of questions that brought the funny out of Stone Cold, and I think that's where he figured out. But yeah, that guy is I could listen to him talk for 3 hours about anything.
Yeah.
He's just so funny.
I love when he says voice.
I love when he says the word athletic. He's like, athletic. I'm not the most athletic rats in West Texas.
He's got that voice, and he's so funny. And there's so many spots back during the Attitude Era, especially, and then later Ruthless Aggression and all that stuff was happening. Where, and it was that night that they're all in the same room, and Vince is preparing the big team for the Alliance, tag team battle that night, and everything that Vince said, Austin repeats it, and you could see Taker covering his mouth because he's laughing.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah. I love that.
It's so good. Like, just being able to bring that out. Like, I think people have less of a problem with that, with guys like Austin, Jericho, Christian, who, by the way, is just hands down hilarious. I love those spots back in the day where it was, hello, Intercontinental Champion over here. I mean, if I go back and watch that, that's some funny stuff. I think people have less of a problem with that than they do an obvious clown like Santino. Because Santino gathers, he just gets so much heat, and like you want to respect the job he's doing, but at the same time he shows up and you're like, oh my God, this has no business being at this point in the show. This is terrible. So I mean, I think people don't cut him a break as much as they would Austin or anybody else. That's not to put him in the same league in the ring, of course, but I'm talking about just from a comedic
No, I know what you
standpoint.
mean. It's weird though, like when you go back and watch the old Raws and the old pay-per-views, it's like guys like Austin and The Rock were just so far and away good on the mic and so funny and so quick. Like it doesn't even I don't think there's anyone really even coming close right now.
No, I don't see it either. I think they've got potential, and I think if you want to go the opposite direction, the two best guys they have on the stick right now are Paul Heyman and Bray Wyatt, hands down. But there's no comedy happening there. It's all intense and drama, and as well as should be. But as far like you said, as the overall entertainment value, where you could piss somebody off in one breath and next minute make them laugh, they don't really, I don't want to say they don't have that, but if they do, they're not letting that person exploit it.
Yeah, I could see Ambrose maybe getting down there in that way. I mean, even maybe Seth Rollins, even though he seems a little bit like I don't know, like I'm talking out of my butt again, but I think Seth Rollins is kind of like, I don't know how funny he is. You know what I mean? He seems like an intense kind of guy, serious guy.
He really does. If you see his Twitter, all he talks about is working out. Yeah. That's it. Like all he talks about is CrossFit, man. There's nothing else dude ever talks about.
Yeah, I've seen him do some interviews. I saw him do an interview once, like about music, and like all the music he listened to was like really serious and like kind of hardcore and just like no sense of humor. It's funny. I've hung out with a lot of wrestlers in the past year, like doing podcasts and like just interviewing some guys and hanging out with some guys. And they're a real funny breed of guys. Like they're a lot like comedians in the sense that they're wicked, arrogant, like super cocky and arrogant, and super insecure at the exact same time.
Yeah.
like really self-conscious, you know?
And you know, at the same time, they've been worked so many times.
Oh, yeah.
They've been worked by promoters and by fans, by other wrestlers. And I remember the first time I got to meet Ricky Morton, the promoter at the time said, dude, when you meet Ricky, don't mark out. I'm like, I'm not going to mark out. And I got to admit, I marked out a little bit. But I couldn't help it, right? And he's like, because Ricky's heard everything. He said, if you give him a compliment, he's going to shrug it off. If you say something mean, he's going to shrug it off too, because he's heard everything.
Yeah.
Because these guys are so used to getting worked. So I mean, I can understand where they're coming from, but yeah, of course the ego's there. You have to sell yourself.
And it's also the kind of person that gets into it. Like, you want to, I don't know, like what kind of guy wants to become a pro wrestler? It's the same. What kind of guy wants to become a comedian? It's almost like there's something a little bit off with you in the first place, like to even want to get into that kind of business. But
you're putting yourself out there for the whole world, and you're essentially, I mean, you're being yourself on stage, I'm sure, but at the same time, aren't you becoming someone else when you're on stage? I mean, are you funny like that all the time? You know what I'm saying? Or is it
I know it's weird. I don't know. Like the thing is, like, you're funny, like, I think a comedian is kind of like, that's who you are when you're, like, at your best. Like, when you're at your, like, when you're with your friends and you're having fun, like, that's who you are. But the thing about being a comedian for a living and for money is, like, sometimes your dog dies and you still got to do a show that night, you know what I mean? And it's like, That's when you got to dig deep and just be funny. But, I love being a comedian, and it's like, I don't think there's much else I could do.
I hear you.
Maybe be a pro wrestler now that I've started.
Well, WWE, man. We're talking about comedy in WWE today, so there you go. You never know something could happen there.
I got the body for it.
I mean, right now Slater's with Titus O'Neil. They could do another 3MB. You could be the third guy. You never know. So
yeah, I think I would be a good like Brad Maddox type guy.
For sure.
Put me out there. Maybe like I'll take a bump like once every 4 shows, and then I can heal from it, and then take another one.
And a lot of what we're saying is just sort of observation. So maybe my observation here is dead wrong, but Brad, if I had to guess, I would say he's a pretty funny guy backstage.
I was a fan of his too. I liked him.
I was too. He just had that look about him, like he could just suddenly just make you laugh for no reason.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that they put him in that role, and I said, wow, I don't know if I'm feeling this. Like, I liked him, but I didn't know if I believed, okay, he was a crooked referee who was an aspiring wrestler, and now he's general manager. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't get that at all.
I thought that was all gonna end. I thought that was all gonna end with him actually being on the roster and being a wrestler. And I was like, I love this, because then you'll have a guy who wrestles who can kind of be like, no, I've been the GM. I know how this works,
Well, and when you talk about trying to find a spot for guys and trying to find something to do with them and see if they can get over, Bo Dallas. Who was
I love
in NXT.
Bo.
Oh, I do too.
I'm a believer.
You're a Bo believer. You have to believe, which is, God bless the kid. It's the only line he's got, which he's making it work. They make him lose to R-Truth, and whoever slams that, I'm sorry, but R-Truth is a talented guy who gets a lot of heat when he shouldn't, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Truth is flat out one of the best they have, to me, in terms of getting it done in the ring. So there's no shame in losing to Truth. I question the timing of it, seeing as how Truth's in your locker room and you're doing nothing with him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I believe that part of it, but again, Bo comes in with some hype. He's got some attention. Not that he doesn't still have it, but the fear is always there that they'll get you to the main roster, and suddenly within 6 months they kind of forget to do anything with you. And I wonder if that's going to happen with Bo eventually.
I hope not. I love Bo. I think he'll continue to grow, and he's a good example of a guy we were just kind of talking about who I think hopefully as the character grows and develops, he will be one of those guys who can kind of make you laugh and scare you in the same breath.
Oh yeah.
Because he's got the gift that his brother has. I've watched some of their old promos that they did together before they were in the WWE, and they're both good on the mic, and they can both cut a great promo. And him and Dean Ambrose right now, they're both guys like I perk up when they come on the screen,
Yeah.
But I hope it's kind of like what you said earlier, it doesn't just fizzle out and not develop, it needs to become something.
I always thought that some of these guys would be helped out with a talk show. I always thought Damien should have his own talk show.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do that with Damien, then give Bo one. You need to have one where it's one of those old goofs where the host is so completely arrogant and so completely oblivious. Like Bo looks out the crowd, they're booing, and he says, "Thank you, I love you," and I'm like, that's so funny to me.
I love that. And you know what? You brought up a good point where people were pissed that he lost to R-Truth. And then I'm like, so what do you want, wrestling fans? All wrestling fans do is complain that everything is super predictable. Cena always wins. They always complain, oh, I knew that was coming. And then something surprising happens, like R-Truth breaking Bo Dallas's streak. It's not like Brock Lesnar breaking Undertaker's, but still, it's breaking a streak. And It was a huge surprise. I think everyone expected him to go over on R-Truth pretty easily, like he'd been plowing through everyone. And then everyone complains because it was the wrong person. It's there's a certain sect of internet fan that you're just never going to please with stuff like that. And
R-Truth, a funny guy in his own right, entertaining, funny. I don't know if you remember the spots where Purdy Ricky. Do you remember that?
Which one?
Purdy Ricky is what he called himself, and it was never done in front of the crowd. It was spots that they filmed other locations, but he had he had a set of phony teeth in, and he called himself Purdy Ricky, and it was funny stuff. But they never pursued it. They did the thing where he was convinced the whole world was out to get him. It was a big conspiracy theory. I thought it was very entertaining. And once again, they never did anything with it. They put him with Miz. And I thought they looked great as that team that just, they're sort of breaking the rules. They're coming in, interrupting the pay-per-view. They're doing all kinds of things they shouldn't be doing. They're getting in trouble. And there again, it fizzles out. So I wonder, how many times is Truth going to be caught up in all of that? Well, listen, we appreciate your effort, but God, geez, we just don't have anything for you right now. Why don't you just sit over in the corner and wait your turn? Yeah.
I wonder there's some guys in that company that seem like that's their role. They're just kind of relegated to, they're not jobbers, but they're not main event guys either. They're just there. Like you said, great hands, great wrestlers. They make other guys look good. They make they're interesting to watch in their own right, so they make themselves look good too. And it can be tough, I think, to get out of that spot.
Oh, yeah. And I mentioned Zach earlier. Zach had a huge following, probably still does.
Yeah.
But it's not enough of an outcry now because I think his fans got so disappointed and said, wow, that's all you could do? That's all you could do with the guy? Putting him with Cena, and again, not to rip on Cena, the guy
I love Cena. I'm not an anti-Cena guy.
He's carrying that company. No one can dispute that.
Yeah.
He's carrying that company. So putting him next to Cena, I think, was the plan in terms of, well, let's make him look good. Let's give him some of Cena's spotlight. But I think it actually hurt him in the long run because it's kind of like your first deal as an astronaut. You get to go to the moon. You don't even get to fly. You don't even get to fly a plane.
Yeah, that can happen.
What do you do after you've been to the moon? What do you do after you've been next to the biggest guy in the business? You've got nothing left to do. You just kind of fizzle out.
I hear, I have a friend of a friend who writes for the WWE, and he says that all the wrestlers, every story all the wrestlers, self-submitted stories are so me and John Cena are feuding. It's every single guy knows if you get to work with Cena, you get to, you get the best time on TV. So they all want to Justin Gabriel was handing in 20-page storylines with him and John Cena, hanging out and stuff like that. And it's kind of the way it is. And I get that totally. And I love Cena, but I don't know. What do you think? You think there's a chance he loses at SummerSlam? Any chance at all?
I think Brock's winning the title. I don't know if it'll be at SummerSlam, but I think it'll happen because, to me, if let's say John gets a clean pin at SummerSlam,
yeah,
then the case could be made that John could have pinned Undertaker.
Yeah.
Brock does have that momentum, even though he's not been on TV. Paul Heyman's reminded you every hour on the hour that Brock defeated Undertaker at WrestleMania 30. So
yeah, you're right.
I think that Brock will end up with the title. I don't know if it'll be a SummerSlam though.
I think that would probably piss off Undertaker a little bit too, because I know he really wanted it to. Well, I don't know that, but I read on the internet, so it must be true that he really wanted to put Brock over. Wanted him to be big after this. So,
go ahead.
Sorry, you just reminded me of something when you were talking about ideas and things they could do to make the show more interesting. Like you said, a guy could use a talk show. I've always had two ideas that I wish the WWE would just steal and use. One is I always thought they should do an MTV Cribs type show.
Oh, that's great.
For all their wrestlers. And you don't have to, it's not supposed to be real. It's not supposed to be where they really live. You just go out and find a really awesome house that someone else lives in that would be like theirs, and then you take them there. So you take CM Punk to some dirty dojo in Chicago, and put some Pepsi cans in there, Kane lives in some dungeon or some medieval castle in Europe. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's awesome.
Cena, I guess he would just use his real house. But Dolph Ziggler lives in some cool ultra modern bachelor pad, and you have them showing around, and then you could show a little bit of their personality and stuff. Because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with what does Hulk Hogan do the 22 hours a day he's not wrestling? What is where does the Ultimate Warrior buy his groceries? What is that like? I used to wonder about stuff like that constantly as a young stand-up comedian becoming a man.
You mentioned going to Dolph's place. I can picture the wall spinning around like with Quagmire on the Family Guy.
And when I said it, I was imagining Quagmire's place. But you know what I'm saying? You get a really crazy place to match each character, and Daniel Bryan's place would be some sort of it'd probably be a tree house out in the redwood forest.
Right.
One of those extreme tree houses. And I always thought that would really get people, and then that would be another way to get characters over. Maybe R-Truth would have some great garage filled with cars that people would love or something like that. I don't know, or a dance studio or a rap studio that he works on his raps in. But I always thought that would be really great, and I always thought it would be great if they attributed some sort of money to having the belt. A lot of guys who are smart to the business know that if you're the champion, you get a bus, and you get you get treated better, you get your t-shirt gets more sales and stuff like that. But what if that was something a guy like Bo Dallas was striving for, in a sense, I don't want to just be champion because I just want that belt and I want to wave it in everyone's face. I want to be champion because I want to get off this I don't want to drive to gigs with Summer Rae anymore, and I want to get off this van, and I want to have the good things that John Cena has, and I want to have some money and some fame. And I think that's something Americans at home can relate with nowadays.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And people would really eat that up and be turn it into a little bit more. Because one of my biggest gripes about the WWE right now is that the belts don't mean anything. The guy will win the Intercontinental Championship, and you won't see it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Or the U.S. Championship you never see. And it's really, they consolidated the titles, so it's they don't even have the dichotomy of the two titles, the two big titles to think about. So it's kind of this whole we watch it, and then Cena retains, and then we watch it again,
And what's funny? What's funny to me, actually pretty hilarious, is that Ambrose had the United States title.
Yeah.
And never defended it.
Not once.
Just never defended it. And the old rule, and this is not WWE, this is pro wrestling in general. I know that dating back probably 30, 40 years or more, there was always a 45-day rule. I think it's 45 days.
Yeah.
Where if you don't defend, it might be 30 actually, don't quote me. It's 30 to 45 days. If you don't defend the title within that period of time.
30 seems like, a good rule, like a month.
Right? Well, like if you don't defend it, you lose the title. And I remember in the WWE's massive war against Daniel Bryan, where they continue, even right now, to beat the guy over the head.
Yeah.
And I get it's all storyline. But dude is laid up, and you still continue to beat him down. He's B+. He's not this. He can't take pain, and all that crap. But Stephanie comes out and threatens that, well, if you can't defend the title, Daniel, 30-day rule. And I'm thinking, whoa, time out, brother. What happened to Dean's United States title? Like, you didn't care about that.
I know, and I think that's cool. Like, I would love to see the U.S. title defended, like, weekly. You know what I mean? Or, like, those lower belts, like, that could be there's no reason why a guy can't defend it all the time. It drives me nuts when I watch, because those matches are always, there's just something on the line. There's something that they really want. And when you go to an indie show, there's always tons of belts on the line, because those are like great matches, because those are when guys try and win. And when a guy is like, like a guy like Ambrose, he's just carrying it to the ring. It's just like another piece of his costume. It gets annoying, and it lessens them all, I think.
It really does. And, back in the day, it was more like, well, we're going to put the United States title on this guy. Let's see how he carries it. Let's see how he conducts himself. Maybe he'll have an opportunity down the road for something bigger.
Yeah.
It was, and that was the promoter talking. That wasn't the fans or kayfabe. That was the promoter saying, let's see how he does with it. Let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah.
But like you said, now it's more like a piece of jewelry than anything else. It's part of his gear.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just kind of like,
I don't get that at all.
And I think even the fans have kind of just grown accustomed to that, and they don't even expect a title to be defended except on a pay-per-view. And even then, they don't even expect the guy to lose it most of the time.
Well, you got to be careful what you name it, because in the NWA, they had the NWA World Television Championship, and still to this day, the most gorgeous belt I've ever seen, hands down, with the red leather, just a gorgeous title. But the Television Championship was defended on TV. And that was part of the deal. You couldn't call it the TV title without it being defended on TV.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like WWE could never do a television title. They probably wouldn't anyway, because it's too much of an old school sounding championship.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they would be handcuffed, forced to defend it. And they would never do that. Because, like you said, they've got two great titles right now with a ton of history behind them.
Yeah.
And they choose not to spotlight them for whatever reason. It's crazy.
I know, it's weird. It's one of the weirder moves they've made in the past few years. It's like, let's get away from one of the most important things about wrestling, the titles. It's like they barely even focus on it. They're trying now to kind of make it like a reality TV type thing.
Exactly.
That's why I think it would be cool if they kind of modernize the belt a little bit. It would still look the same and stand for everything, but it would be like, it would come with perks like a bus and like kayfabe perks, not real things, but like,
right.
Like you'd be like, oh, like a guy like, say a guy like fresh up from NXT gets a shot at the title. It's like, oh my God, I could buy my mom. Like you get some sweet baby face going like, I just want to win the title so I can buy my mom a house or get my mom surgery. You know what I mean? Like imagine that. Imagine what kind of like how a guy would get over, because people would be like, he doesn't just need this for the glory, like he needs to win this. Like people might need a little bit more out of their wrestling in 2014 with all the reality TV and like horrible stuff people are watching all the time, That's
true. And it reminds me of Bill Walton in an interview where he was talking about who's going to go to the NBA from college, and he tells his father, he says, Dad, I'm going to go to the NBA, and when I start making money, I'm going to buy you a car. And his father looks at him and says, what's the NBA? Had no idea. So the idea you just pitched about, and that would be great coming from a young babyface. We could say, my dad's a bit older. Honestly, he never watched wrestling. He didn't know what this company was. And guess what? I got to buy him that car.
Yeah, that would be such good. And you'd be seeing tears in people's eyes. Because that's a story like everyone can relate with. Like everyone in America, that's the American dream. Everyone in America wants to be wealthier than their parents so they can take care of them and take care of their next generation and just be better. You know what I mean? And it's the WWE seems to just be a little bit stalled right now. It's like it's trying new things. It's trying to figure out like what people want. I think they thought the network was going to be like the answer to all their problems and how unlucky can you be to have Daniel Bryan and CM Punk both go out
such a shame.
Right as you launch the network. I mean, that I think hurt the stock as much as anything, and I don't know. I just think I think they should try stuff like that, but I don't know. I honestly don't know if it'll ever happen.
Such a shame about Bryan. The entire story. He was just such a. And I mean, fans rallied behind him. If anyone ever doubts how over he was, go back and watch the night that he turned on Bray in the steel cage. That crowd.
Oh, that was amazing. And that was in Hartford too, which was only about an hour and a half away from me. You have no idea how much I kicked myself for not going to that show.
That would have been amazing to be there.
I thought about going to it as well, and I was like, man, I should go. And I just I think I had some slight money issues that month, and I was like, I could spend the money, but I should save it. And me and all my friends we were watching, we were like, we are idiots. We should be there right now.
And I don't know this for sure because I've not listened to interviews with him since then. But if I had to guess, I would say that maybe that night was bigger for him than WrestleMania in terms of.
I think so.
Because he knew Mania was going to happen, and he knew the crowd was going to want it. But how did he know what the crowd would do that night? And they absolutely exploded.
Yeah, I was just saying this the other night. I consider myself really lucky. I went to Survivor Series, which was right before that, and it was almost the peak of him being over. So I got to be in a huge crowd of yes chants. That was and then it was also CM Punk. Him and CM Punk tagged at Survivor Series, so it was a kind of a great match to see. And I consider myself lucky to see it. But yeah, that crowd was insane, man. I think he'll still get that back. I don't know if it'll ever reach that level, or it'll take a long time to get back to that level. But I can't wait to see him come back and just see what happens with that, because I think it'll still be I still think he'll be an underdog when he comes back.
Oh, for sure. I wonder how much they're going to be able to play that card, because they really, over the course of 18 months, they played that card out like crazy.
Yeah, and I think he lost. I'm sure he lost a little bit of, I don't know. I don't think he lost anything, but he became more of a serious wrestler or something in this injury. You know what I mean? In a weird way. It's even though he doesn't have the title, when a guy gets the title taken away in that weird way, it's they don't lose it, so they don't lose any face really. It's just kind of he's still lost. Bryan loses a little bit of his scrappy underdog quality when he becomes the classy champion. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then he gets injured, and then he kind of becomes, now he's, he's just kind of a dutiful, doing the conferences for the company and stuff like that. Even though the breaking up the burger, I can't say that word because I have a Boston accent, but the burglary, bro.
Man, what an amazing,
that was unbelievable.
That was awesome, right?
So if they could tie that in, but I guess the word I'm looking for is I'm worried. I just hope Daniel Bryan doesn't come back and they do it wrong and he loses too much of his momentum and it goes south for him. I just hope that doesn't happen.
I have a concern with that also, because by the time he gets back, and the rumor is January now is what I'm hearing.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know, right? And whether or not that's true, I have no idea. But if that is the case, I worry as how far along will Roman be, because you mentioned the state of the company, how they're sort of just sitting still. Roman's the next guy. And I mean, the first time I saw him stand up and speak, apart from the other two, I thought, holy God, this guy's it. And I remember not long after that, I started reading, is Roman the top guy? And I thought, wow, somebody else thinks that too. That's cool. And then suddenly it explodes.
Yeah.
You just get that feeling and for him to be what they want him to be, will they have room for Daniel on that level? Or will it be, God, dude, Daniel, you're kind of stealing his thunder a little bit. You kind of take a back seat to him. I don't want to see that happen. I don't know if Daniel would have a problem with it because he would still be there and be at the top, but still, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's with Bryan going down with the injury and Punk leaving, all of a sudden there's just this chasm of room for guys to take their place. When does that doesn't happen very often, that the two of the top three guys just go down like that. Cena had it all to himself, but even Cena's a polarizing figure. Not all the fans love him. So Dolph, I think, Dolph pretty much benefited the most out of both those guys. Dolph and Cesaro, got kind of pushed into the spot. Well, Dolph didn't get pushed into the spotlight. Dolph was pulled into the spotlight by the fans.
Right.
But I think they gave Cesaro his push and everything like that. I actually predicted, I thought Cesaro was going to be the next big thing. Like, when Bryan got injured, I was like, all right, now he'll be the champion at WrestleMania 2015 will be Cesaro. But now I think you're right. I think it'll probably be Roman. And, it'll just be interesting to see what they do. It's like, I don't know if they think too far ahead. One person told me that, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if this is true at all, but Vince hates long-term storylines because of injuries, and he hates wasting a lot of time writing something if a guy's just gonna go down with an injury, and that's why he likes to keep things 2 weeks at a time, which can be, I don't know, annoying.
Well, because they are under the impression that fans don't have the patience for it, and that's been drilled. That's been drilled into our heads for X number of years now. And I always wonder: is that really the case, or is it because you think that's the case?
Yeah, and there's so many. They're going with children. When you go to a live WWE show, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that it's a lot of kids. It's a good quarter to maybe even a third of the crowd is children. So they're trying to please the children. They're trying to please the casual fan. I know they focus very hard on getting new fans in the casual fan. So they don't want someone coming in and being like, oh man, this is just too complicated for me. I can't figure it out. I'm just going to change the channel. And I think they're worried about the guys like us and the sort of addicted fan, last, because they have our money and they know we're going to pretty much watch every week and keep buying the t-shirts and stuff like that. So it's there's a little bit too much of a corporate mentality over there of just put out the show, collect the money, and I think as Vince probably gets older, he's getting less creative and cares less about it,
And then Triple H goes on live television and blasts the internet community that WWE is spending a lot of hours encouraging us to be with to begin with.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I listened to that promo and I kind of laughed and I said, was that supposed to make me mad or make me laugh? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I took it as make us laugh. I was thinking okay, I hope what he's saying is you guys are so smart that you should get this. You know what I mean?
Right.
You should get that this is directed right at you, but I don't know. I actually kind of liked, a lot of people were going crazy with the $9.99 thing, but I get what they're doing. They're trying to make it, they're just making the price of the network a heel,
Well, and if you're a fan, you're crazy not to get the network. I mean, because I bought in the week it started. I bought in. Okay.
Me too.
Well, not just as a fan, but I got to use this stuff for research and whatnot. And it's a lot easier having it right there at the click of a mouse or the touch of a keypad or whatever. But
of course, yeah.
The first week was glitchy. It was terrible.
Oh, I was on that first day right with you, man, and I remember
it was terrible.
That first day was rough. I thought I was getting charged over and over again. I remember I was terrified.
But now that a lot of that's been ironed out, again, it's $10. Unless they were to come up today and say, okay, we're going to have to go to $30 a month, then it's going to be, that's more of a commitment, man. I don't know if I can do that for you. So
even if you don't watch it all month and you get together with two buddies and watch a pay-per-view, that's worth it.
Exactly. Worth it. Yeah.
Because I was already throwing in $10 every pay-per-view, with all my buddies, 6 or 7 of us would get together, and throw in $10. So that right there is already worth it. Not to mention, anytime you feel like it, you can watch wrestling. And I watch it on my iPhone most of the time, anywhere I have Wi-Fi, in an airport or bus station or some shit, or rest stop, you just throw on some. I especially like Countdown and stuff like that, and WrestleMania Rewind.
Oh yeah.
And also you can get we sound like Michael Cole and JBL right now. And also you can get into a guy this. The funniest thing happened to me. My girlfriend got caught in a hoax. She goes she texted me. She's like, The Rock is dead. And I was like, what?
Oh wow.
And I it took me 2 minutes to figure out it wasn't true because I just I just checked Twitter and
I do the same thing.
Yeah, I just checked Twitter and Google, and there was nothing. So I was like, oh, it's not true. So, but then like just the fear of him, like it kind of made me appreciate him like a little more. And then I went on like a month-long like rock binge where I was just like watching all his best stuff on the network. And then I kind of went on an RVD binge and like started watching his stuff. And then like you can just get into these like. You get into a wrestler and you just have 10 hours of matches that you can watch. You know, it's really great.
Well, what a great idea to get people watching. Like just throw the hoax out there. Yeah, he's dead. We're pretty sure he's dead. And then all of a sudden, like you said, fans are tuning in. Oh, I got to watch it now. You know. Yeah,
man. It got me. I was like, oh, The Rock, he's the best. Yeah, I got to go watch his old matches.
We're talking about guys who, that the comedy comes naturally to. Rock is obviously one of them.
Oh, yeah, man.
Although I have to say, during the Attitude Era, I got a little tired of hearing the phrase monkey crap every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But
the timing, he's got the timing, though, like I was talking about earlier, like that comedic. Timing is everything. Like, a good pause, like silence, you know, like when a guy can take a good long pause and answer with a witty, like that's like half of it is just that knowing when to say it, you know, and when a guy has that skill, like, there's a guy on the indies, Chuck Taylor, who's like really funny. He could easily be a stand-up comedian. His sense of timing is just off the charts good, you know.
Well, you go back and watch old Nitros, and if you got the stomach for the later years, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you see the promos, especially when there's 2 or 3 guys in the ring at the same time with 2 or 3 different microphones. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
Because they're talking on top of each other. And you can tell when a guy goes to work for Vince, like the first thing I tell him is, you say what you want to say, you give the other guy a turn, you take your turn, he takes his turn.
Yeah, and be short about it, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
That's the key. Like, I've actually, like, I've been, you know, I've interviewed indie wrestlers and like we get to like, I'll usually ask them a couple stupid questions about wrestling and they'll usually, I think to be nice, they'll be like, well, what do you think wrestlers can do to cut better promos as a comedian? And that's like one of the things I always say. I'm like, you know, keep it short. You know, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Dean Ambrose cut a great promo the other night with like his talking about his stipulations. That was nice and short, nice and sweet, you know, like you don't want to be out there talking too much. That can always be, and if a guy gets a reputation for that, people check out. Like, I'm sure.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who, when they see, Triple H pick up a mic, they just go, oh, here we go, you know, like this is going to be 15 minutes and, you don't want that.
I can remember during, I want to say during Evolution, or it might have been his run before Evolution with the title. Well, he didn't have the title before, maybe after. Some point during that run where, once again, he was in the ring and he was talking about how great he was and putting himself over. And I thought, are we still doing this? Do you still have to convince me you're the top? You know what I mean? Like, you still have to convince me you're the top heel? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And I understand that you have to do it for the live crowd in order to take them off and get the heat from them. But at the same time, it's like, dude, I just heard this an hour ago. I don't know. Why do I have to hear it again?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That seems to be, I mean, I don't know. I only was on that one show. Sometimes I wonder how much is left right until showtime sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I know with any comedy show or any sort of performance, sometimes if there's a big main event, it takes away from everything else, you know what I mean? And then everyone just focuses on the main event. And then it's like 2 hours before showtime and you just throw everything else together. And sometimes I get that feeling when I'm watching WWE. I'm like, yeah, this is just like a thrown together. Like, they had nothing, so they were like, all right, let's just go with the classic. You know, I'm the best heel. I'm the best baby face. I'm going to win. You know what I mean? That, which some guys do better than anything, but then other times you're just like, enough is enough.
Well, and you know, talking about enough is enough, and I hate the crap on these guys because they're on TV, they're doing what's asked of them. They were put in sort of a silly gimmick, but they obviously are okay with it because, you know, you're getting paid and you're on the show next to Cena sometimes. So Los Matadors, Yeah, El Torito, Hornswoggle.
I like their song.
So over the top, and everyone in the crowd knows who the two guys are, and we get that, and you've got the little bull running around, and Hornswoggle, who I don't know what he's supposed to be this week, but it's just.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I say, okay, is this supposed to make me laugh, or is this done for the PG rating? I'm not really sure where I'm falling on that one.
Yeah. I don't know about Hornswoggle. I like El Torito a lot. He has a highlight reel from his Mexico wrestling days that is just off the charts awesome.
Oh, cool.
Like they are underusing him because he can really do some stuff, like some lucha type stuff. But
my 5-year-old loves him. He calls him El Chorito. I don't know where he got that from, but yeah, he loves that. He's like, Daddy, I can't wait to see the bull. He just couldn't wait to see him live.
That's probably the reason why he's there. Like they try. I think the WWE's goal is to have something for everybody. Like my friend Pete was like, Peter Martin. He's a comedian. He was like, man, why are they ending Raw with Brie Bella and Stephanie McMahon? Like, who is this for? And then I was like, it's for my girlfriend who's like all about the storyline and like loves Brie Bella, right. and loves Stephanie McMahon as well. Like there is more. They kind of seem to do a match for everybody now. It's like a match for the kids, a match for the smarks, a match for the ladies now, the Total Diva fans, and who knows what else.
Well, and you're talking about having something for everybody. And I'm trying to look at the Goldust Stardust thing. And they've been in front of the fans.
Oh wait, I got off topic though for a second. I forgot El Torito. To get back to midget wrestling.
Right.
When I was a kid, I had a midget wrestling VHS tape that I loved. And I don't really love that stuff now, but when I was a kid, I loved it. I think kids like little people because it's like representative of them. You know what I mean? It's like your son was probably like, yeah, that's probably what I'd do if I was in there.
That's a great point.
Like I'd jump up, I'd swing, I'd do a Hurricane Rana off a dude's head and mess him up. But like I kind of like Hornswoggle as a manager. He does look like a little drunk. I think little people have a place in wrestling. They've been involved in wrestling as long as it's been going. It's not like they're not a part of the business. And
it's true, yeah.
And that's my statement on that. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, I remember one of the promoters I worked for at the time, he was telling me that, because the question came up, can we get some guys to come in for a show just to run one match?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, good luck because they're expensive. And that was always that. I remember that being said because they were such an attraction. When you put them on a poster, people will pay to come see it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, I know not a bunch, but I know a couple guys who are comedians, and they make good money and they're always working.
I hear you, yeah.
Yeah, little people.
Little people,
big bank accounts.
Well, it makes you wonder at some point, because, God, who was it? Didn't Bischoff try something like that with an actual promotion on Spike?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, this VHS tape I had, I don't know even where I got it from, but me and my buddies used to like share it and like borrow it from each other week by week. And it was like 2 hours and they were wrestling in front of big crowds and they were good matches, and a lot of like sometimes with regular sized guys mixed in and they always had like the same kind of 4 spots in every match.
Right.
Like midget specific spots, but some good stuff, man, and I don't know, like I think there's a place for it. They just need to do it more.
Well, I think Hornswoggle, and God, you talk about heat and talk about hate. There is so much hate against Hornswoggle, and again, I don't know if it's even at him personally. I mean, there's a lot of crazy fans out there. Trust me. There's a lot of crazy fans out there who make it personal. They'll insult the guys personally, insult his family, whatever it is. But for me, I don't know if I see a lot of the hate that's being thrown around gauged at him personally. It's more like, why do I have to watch this? Why can't they do something generally creative with him? And I think that the potential is there, but like they put him with Fandango and say, well, there you go, just go out there. And the crowd's going, what am I looking at? You know what I mean?
He is funny. Like I thought he was great with El Torito and 3MB when he got his head shaved.
Right.
Like I thought that was the whole thing with him, with 3MB in Los Matadores when they had the contract signing. That was funny.
Right, yeah.
Like, I thought that was truly funny, not like ironically funny. Like, I just thought it was straight up funny. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that whole little, like, it was only like a 2 or 3 week storyline, but I really dug it. And I remember thinking that when Hornswoggle was like getting his head shaved and getting his ass kicked in that match, I remember thinking like, this is slightly corny and slightly like carnival-esque, but like this is really funny and it's good old-fashioned. Just like, my favorite thing about wrestling sometimes is that it's like old-fashioned and it's just good old-fashioned like entertainment, like
right.
Kind of goofy and kind of like
pie in the face kind of thing.
Yeah, I like a little bit of that in my comedy or in my entertainment sometimes, and it's good to have a guy like CM Punk breaking the fourth wall and kind of bringing in the smart fans, but I think that kind of variety is awesome to have like a little bit of a classic, just a midget getting his head shaved,
There's probably whole websites dedicated to just that.
Yeah, people want to see it.
So
take my money.
Well, I remember when they put DX back together when it was just Hunter and Sean, and they had the spot backstage where Hornswoggle was talking to him. He had to stand on the stepladder to get up between them and talk to them. And they're talking over the game plan or whatever it was, and the whole time they're talking, Hornswoggle is smacking each one of them on the shoulder, like, huh? Like,
yeah.
Dude, I laughed all day over that.
Yeah, he's funny.
He was hilarious. And I thought, that's where he should be used. You need to put him with guys who have the funny gimmicks, but it's not over the top, where they don't talk down to him as a person, where it's, no pun intended, but where it's more like, what do you think? And they just kind of include him instead of it being, oh, look, he's an attraction. He's going to fight that little guy over there now.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's another guy. Maybe him and Maddox could get paired up together because they're both funny and they both have good timing. Maybe they could work off each other.
I like the idea of somebody of Hornswoggle's stature being in charge of something. Like, in my opinion, I mean, why not make him the anonymous Raw GM? Talk about one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Is making us sit through months and months of that, and then there's no payoff. There's nothing. Like, it's just like, this is the end? Are you serious? This is terrible.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That
was one of those examples where I think they had no end in sight and they just went, screw it.
Yeah. Because you talk about controversy, or not controversy, but conspiracy theories going on around about, and I wrote that column a lot about who the anonymous Raw GM was. I had some good ones. In fact, the best one I did, I thought, was Eugene. Because I thought he would have been perfect. It would have been, you laughed at me. I was told to play the clown and I did it. You laughed at me and you didn't treat me with respect, and I'm back and I'm in charge.
Yeah.
But
that would have been great.
And I mean, Eugene, well, there you go, another comedic guy, but Eugene had his own brand and his own way of, and, different than, I think Santino sometimes feels like he's really trying to make you laugh, and Eugene was more like, yeah, I'm not really here. I just want you to like me and just let me wave at you. You wave back at me. And they're both good in their own right, but I thought Eugene was very good for a long time.
Yeah, I actually, like, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, that'd be so interesting, to have him come back and kind of, like, be ultra articulate.
Oh, yeah, like he's fooled everyone.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be cool as hell. You should write for the WWE, Tom.
Well, I tell you what, you may have more connections than I do. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, let's work it out, man.
I'll get you a spot on the show for sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I want one of those, like, I was really jealous when I saw, the kid from Breaking Bad, Jesse Pinkman there. What's his real name? Is that his real name? I always confuse him.
It could. Are you there?
Can you hear me? I think I'm.
Yeah, I've got you. I think we blanked out for a second.
I think I accidentally hit the mute button.
Oh, that's no problem.
Yeah, that kid Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
Aaron Paul. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, he did that episode of Raw, and I was like, man, that kid, like, I'm jealous of him right now. That'd be cool as hell to just, come out in the car and just throw a couple punches.
Well, and a lot of that I think is meant to be funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you look at it and you're like, okay, let me get this straight. The Miz, who is a trained professional wrestler, is getting thrown around by someone who's not a trained professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And, you try to take it on the chin and say, all right, Tom, let it go, man. It's just entertainment. That just, they brought some extra eyes to the product tonight. That's a good thing for the show. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I like that. So, I mean,
well,
I'm always torn.
I've noticed they do it with, like, action stars, right?
Right.
Like Heath, what's his name? Not Heath Slater or Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger's, he's dead. I was thinking of, what's the guy I was thinking of? Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Like, Hugh Jackman, I think they're trying to sell, like, he's not like a 5'8" movie star. He's like Wolverine, so he actually is supposed to be able to beat somebody up. And, like, the same thing with, like, Aaron Paul. Whereas I don't think back in the day they really would have done that. I think they would have still had, like, a movie star job to, like, a wrestler. But now they seem to put over, like, young guys. But, like, when it's a comedic guy like the dude from The Hangover or, like, Jeremy Piven or something like that, they get screwed up.
Yeah, Jeremy Piven, like, was just... I don't know how likable he is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, who does not like Hugh Jackman? Everything, even if you're not into the stuff he's done, like musicals and whatever, you can't deny that he's talented and he's so likable. And, Piven is a comedian, and not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. But, yeah, I mean, I just don't know if there was enough people buying into that when he showed up. Like, he obviously had a great time. And didn't he come off the top rope that night?
Yeah, he did. He took one of the biggest bumps.
That was great.
I was using him as an example when I did my indie wrestling spot. I was like, dude, I don't want people walking around going like, he didn't. I want people to be talking about me taking a huge spot or taking a huge bump, doing a big, like, people were shocked that that me and Ryan got power bombed out over the top rope, Oh,
there you go. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, dude, it was. I can't wait till I'll send you the picture if you haven't seen it, but. I have a still photo, but when the video comes out, I can't wait to see it. It was 2 weeks ago, yesterday, and my shoulder still hurts. I still haven't gotten a full night's sleep because of my shoulder.
I've seen some of the pics on Instagram of the after effects, so that was...
Oh, yeah, it got chopped up and everything.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It was awesome, man, and if anyone's listening, they should check out Beyond Wrestling. I was like... It was a great time, and Kurt Hawkins was on the show.
Oh, there you go.
Eddie Edwards from TNA was on the show, and a bunch of great ROH guys. And it was like I got to hang out with Young Bucks and a bunch of cool guys. And it was like I kept saying all day, I was like, I feel like I'm on MTV Made. I want to be a wrestler. It was like everyone was just nice to me. It was like I was like, do I have like cancer and no one's telling me? Because everyone was just super nice and like treating me like with open arms, and was really great until we got in the ring and they beat the crap out of me.
Right.
That was my initiation. Like it's funny. You can be a fan of wrestling and you know all about ribs and all about them, and you still get tricked. That's exactly,
oh yeah.
Like I walked right into a rib, and I knew like as soon as it started to happen, I was like, oh my god, how was I so stupid? But it's like it's a fantasy world, and you just fall right into it,
And it's hard to not be pumped up when you're in front of a crowd, no doubt.
Oh hell yeah!
I mean, you feed off that, and you hear the WWE guys talk about that all the time. But and did it go by like really, really fast for you? It felt like 30 seconds and it was over.
That's what I was gonna say. That was the next thing out of my mouth. Was like it was just like a blur. Like it was like a car accident type of deal. I was saying to somebody, like you just kind of. It's over before you know it, and as soon as you walk through the curtain, I remember thinking I'm on stage all the time. I've been doing comedy for years. I don't get super excited by being on stage. Like, I get excited, but my heart doesn't pound like when I do stand-up comedy, and I don't get like, I love to walk out on stage, but I hadn't felt this pumped up in a long time. Like I'm
sure, yeah.
And it was exactly like you said. It was like just over before I knew it, and it was chaos. And I took way more contact than I thought I was going to take.
Yeah.
So, and very early on too. So it was kind of at that point I was saying to a lot of my buddies, like a lot of it's just like kind of being in a real fight. Like if you've ever been in one, it's like kind of like chaotic, and you don't really know, especially since I was in this battle royal. So it was just, I could have easily gotten hurt just by walking into the wrong area of the ring and getting an elbow to the head or something.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because you got to know where you're supposed to be at what time. And, these guys do it so often and so long that you watch a match between two guys who've worked each other for a while. Like, you watch Flair and Steamboat.
Oh, I have. Dude, Those are my two favorite. I have both their DVDs, and I watch them all the time. Man.
Oh, they're amazing. The 3 matches they had in 1989 to this day, bar none, the best trinity of matches you will ever see in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
But like they didn't even have to talk to each other. You watch those matches, they barely said one word because they just knew, okay, if he's put me in the corner, I know he's going to come in with this.
That was my, because I got there a few hours early, because I just wanted to get the whole experience, and that was kind of like the thing I was asking guys all day long. I was like, what do you do? Like, what goes into it? Like, because a lot of the conversations I heard were just like, hey man, you found out you guys are going over tonight? All right, well, how about we just do like this, and this? I'll grab you, I'll make this face, and then we'll finish it like this, and it's over. And the other guy's like, yeah, cool. And then the rest,
right.
they just figure it out there. And then there's other guys who, like, they work out the whole match. And then there's other guys who, like you said, they don't say anything to each other because, like, there were these guys, Milk Chocolate tag team out here that I worked with. Mm-hmm. And they work together so much that they never speak when they're in the ring. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
They have all these tag moves that they do, but they don't even yell them out or say anything because they just know instinctually from each other, from working together for so long, like which move to go into. And a lot of it is that. I hear, like CM Punk used to like to do that a lot. Like just be like, let's not call it, let's just go out there and feel it out.
That was his complaint about Orton, was that Orton was so mechanic.
Yeah.
Because Orton had to do the same thing every time. He wouldn't, like Bret Hart, the same thing was said about Bret, all due respect to both those guys, but
yeah. I love both of them.
Oh, yeah, and the same thing was said about Bret by Flair, was that Bret was so mechanic. Like, if you tried to throw something in to deviate from the program, he would get upset because, like, no, I don't do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to do what I'm doing. And Flair's like, look, man, you got to work off the cuff. You got to play to the crowd. You got to, if it calls for you to go over the top rope, and when you're not supposed to, do it if that's what it calls for.
Yeah, and that, I can't speak to wrestling, but I could say, as a comedian, it's sort of, there's the same. It's not that either guy is right or wrong. It's just that's his style. You know what I mean? There's comedians who are very technical and like to have their stuff prepared and like tight before they go on stage. And there's other guys who like barely write at all and they go out there and they just kind of wing it. And like luckily for us, we don't have to work together. Like, right. We just go out there and do our own thing. But I'm sure, like I got the feeling just at this indie show that, it's just like comedy. Every wrestler's got a different personality and they're all dealing with things their own way. And I'm sure, look at the family like Bret Hart and, Orton come from. I'm sure like an idea of an improvisational wrestling match is like absurd to them.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Cause they came up a lot different. They came up being instructed what to do from start to finish. So it makes a lot of sense.
CM Punk came up in backyards and stuff and like in early days of Chikara and ROH. I mean, that's a totally different like education.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I love Randy Orton, by the way. Like, a lot of times people on the internet shit on Orton, but man, I think he's a guy who cracks me up. Like when he is like playing the heel well and when like he's getting booed by the fans, like when him and Cena were having that match and the crowd just hated it and he kept throwing up his arms in the air and smirking at them. Like I was bent over laughing. Like I love it. I eat it up. Like, and I think Orton, he might be technical, but I think he plays the crowd real well with like his taunts. Like no one taunts like Orton.
Oh, this is true. Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah. He's such a first class heel. I mean, for him to be babyface, I know, and he was huge. His last babyface run, he popped the crowd like crazy.
Oh, women love Randy Orton.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, I'm thinking, no man, come on, he's got to be heel. He's just got to be heel.
Yeah, he's great at it. He's the best. I have an Orton T-shirt, man. I love Orton.
I hear you. Well, I wonder what the future holds for this company, and especially like we've been talking a little bit about Punk. Like, is he? And he's got to eat this up. He's got to love every second of it. That he's still being talked about because, that's an ego thing. And also, there's nothing wrong with people talking about you, whether it's good, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
No
so
way.
It doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, it's all good. And I wonder what it's like with him and AJ Lee. Like, she's out there on the road, like working and his name's getting chanted. I'm sure everywhere she goes in public, people yell CM Punk at her, ask her where's CM Punk or what's he doing, you know. So I wonder if their relationship is like strained at all because of that. And I wonder if it'll be strained, like she's still working for the company. He's going to be watching. He's going to be around it. He's going to know. He's still going to be hearing about like so-and-so fighting with so-and-so backstage. And that kind of stuff's tough to walk away from, you know. Sooner or later, he's going to get bored with just like watching zombie movies and eating.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know?
And I remember one of the interviews that Edge did on the documentary on WWE Network with Edge, and he has so completely walked away. Like he didn't have a choice; he had to.
Yeah, he had to. Yeah.
I get all that, but man, he is completely done. Like he wants nothing to do with, doing a general manager deal. He doesn't want to do anything. He's like, no, I'm done. I've moved on. But somebody like Punk who physically could still go, and like you said, how long can you stay away? And the older guys get a lot of they catch a lot of heat for coming back and coming back and coming back. But once it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
No, and that's not just that's everything ever. That's a man thing, not like a wrestler thing. I mean, you see it all the time with pro baseball players. Brett Favre being a perfect example of a pro football player doing it, but comedians do it too, and actors do it. It's like, it's like you hit a certain age and you're like, screw this, I've been busting my ass, I'm tired. But then you take a rest and you're like, you know what, I still have something left in the tank that I can give. And I mean, like, especially a guy like Stone Cold, right? How many emails do you think he gets a day that are like, come back, Stone Cold, like do one more match, you know what I mean? And it's gotta be tough. Like one of the reasons I'm happy I do stand-up comedy is because I can do stand-up comedy until the day I die, you know what I mean? I won't ever be I could go out there in a wheelchair and do it, you know?
Right.
Like, it would be hard for me to have to know. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to know in the back of my head that, like, I'm 31 years old now, so, like, if I knew in the back of my head, like, in 8 or 9 years, I won't be able to be doing stand-up comedy anymore, and I got to figure out something else. Maybe I'll manage, maybe I'll write, that would, like, break my heart to kind of have that in the back of my mind all the time, you know?
Right.
Like, I feel bad for wrestlers in that way, or any athlete that they kind of have, like, a expiration date on their career. So it's kind of it's got depressing real fast.
Well, let me ask you this on more of your side of the fence. What you do for a living here? A lot of times wrestlers try to transition into Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I remember Mitch Hedberg with a great bit about just because I'm a comedian doesn't mean I want to do anything else. I just want to tell jokes. Because he's like, just because you eat meat doesn't mean you're going to farm.
Yeah, I think about that joke. It's funny. I probably think about that joke 5 times a week.
Well, there you go. See,
yeah.
I mean, then I got to ask you, in your mind, are you to that point? If you were approached by the right people and they said, hey, we're developing a sitcom, we've seen your stuff, are you interested? Would it be like, oh man, I have to jump on this? Or would it be like, I don't know if I want to saddle myself to that right now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's funny. You're like, I've been getting asked this question a lot lately.
Yeah.
But I think, stand-up comedy's always been, like, my thing that I do. And, like, right now, I do some commercials and stuff like that. And, I don't really get this, I love acting and I like doing it, but I don't get the same, like, charge out of it that I do, from doing stand-up. But, like, it's funny, if I got something, like, I guess it all depends on, like, what it was, but I would never, ever give up stand-up comedy. Like, even if I got a sitcom, I would definitely still do stand-up, like, every night. And the reason I would be excited to get a sitcom right now is in my head I'd be like, all right, if I get a sitcom, then I can kind of headline comedy clubs forever, because I'd be able to say like, oh, it's that guy from that show.
Right. So, like,
yeah. In my mind, that's the first thing I went to when you were like, if you did a sitcom, like, I didn't think, oh, yeah, that'd be great. I'd be famous. I'd be on TV. In my mind, I was like, oh, I'd get such good gigs, stand-up gigs if I was on a sitcom.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the kind of thing I kind of think about. But, like, it's all that stuff is just like, you just kind of got to take what comes your way. Lately, I've been doing a lot of commercials, and I've been getting some small, like, one-line parts on some, like, local kind of, like, movie stuff. And, But, like my main thing is still stand-up. And it's funny, now that I've done this wrestling thing, I've even gotten a couple, like, little offers from wrestling promotions to, like, do a few things here and there.
That's awesome.
And that's actually probably more tempting than anything.
I'm sure.
Because it's just so fun. So, like, I know a few stand-up comedians have written for the WWE, and that would be something that, like, if it came along, it might be hard to say no to.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
For a couple, even for a year or two, just to see what that's like and know what it's like over there, But it would be something that would be hard to think about, because really stand-up comedy is just where it's at for me, and nothing is kind of more fulfilling.
And, I guess I'm sure a lot of it for you just being in front of a live crowd and playing off that, getting that immediate reaction as opposed to reading a review of how the show was.
Yeah, and also, like, I write all my own material. Most comics do nowadays. And, like, that is for me, that's like, that's probably my favorite part is, you can think of something on the way to the gig, or you can think of something that Wednesday and do it that Friday, and you're hearing like this whole audience of people laughing at just some idea you had, and it's like a real thrill. It's like it'd be like if you got to watch everyone read your article.
Right, yeah.
It'd be like if you got to sit there and have like a cup of coffee with everyone and be like, so, what'd you think? Or like watch them smile and nod as they read it. It's like a very fulfilling feeling to be like, yeah, like I had this thought and you had it too. You just didn't even know you had it yet. And now we're sharing it together,
Yeah, because I get that sometimes. I'm sure you do too. You get that aha moment where somebody in the crowd's like, oh, I get it. I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, it's a great... I love looking at someone's face, and I can see, like, you see a lot of different, like, expressions when you look into an audience, and when you can see someone who's just in it, and they're kind of like, it's like they're watching magic happen, It's like they just have a look of kind of like awe on their face, or happy. They're just content, and it's a great thing, man. It's like... It's nothing like it, really. It's when it's good, it's the best, and when it's bad, it's the worst.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Well, Will, I think we're going to wrap it up here, brother.
Sounds good, man.
Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. Before we go, you want to take a minute to tell folks out there where you're at, how they can find you online, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm pretty easy. WillNoonan.com is where all my stuff is at, and I'm Will Noonan on Twitter. You can see me and Tom talking on there all the time, and I got I got everything, so Instagram, Vine, Snapchat, I'm pretty all over the place. But if you're into wrestling, I do a podcast called Spare Ribs. It's me and an indie wrestler talking every week, and I've interviewed like Mike Quackenbush and a couple other guys, Stoney and Thunderfrog, a couple Chikara guys. And I interviewed Antonio Thomas from the WWE, from the Heartbreakers.
Oh, there you go.
And he's a good friend, actually, a great guy. And if you want to check that out, just check it out. But other than that, just thanks for having me on, man. And it's great to finally talk to you. And I hope like you'll have me on again soon.
Oh, absolutely, man. And it's much appreciated, man. We'll have you on the show again real soon. I do appreciate everything, Will.
Hey, my pleasure, dude. It's a nice way to spend a Monday afternoon.
There you go. All right, Mel. Well, thanks again, man, and good luck in everything you're doing, and look forward to hearing from you again.
Likewise, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it. That was myself and my first ever guest on the program, Mr. Will Noonan. Again, much thanks to him for tuning in. Next week, we're going to be back with another brand new main event. Please feel free to let me know what you think. TomClarkBR@yahoo.com. You can also find me on Twitter at TomClarkBR. Let me know what you think about the program. Thanks again for tuning in. And folks, have a great one. We will see you next time on Tom Clark's Main Event.